security staff will be available to direct you. The public toilets are located right by the main reception to your right as you enter the building. This is a no smoking building. Please ensure you do not smoke on the premises. Please can you take a moment to switch your mobile phones off, or at least switch them to silent. Members of the subcommittee will not access the internet, and members too. Send or receive emails, text messages or tweets concerning the business of the subcommittee. We do have Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, and the access code is 2018 ! I'd ask you please to be considerate towards other people in the room and take care not to disturb the proceedings, especially yelling out from the floor. It doesn't help. Please speak through the chair. I have not received any apologies. We have what one? Oh yes, it's Councillor Soames, who is the chair, and Councillor Merrill as well. Are there any apologies for absence or lateness from this meeting? We're okay? Okay, confirmation of voting members. Please will the voting members of the committee indicate by raising their hand. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hargrove is here as a reserve for Councillor Merrill, who is the regular member of this panel. Disclosure of members' interests and dispensations. Does any member wish to declare any interest or dispensation in respect of any item or issue to be considered at this meeting? All good, thank you. The following additional documents were circulated prior to the meeting. We have the addendum report and the members' pack, which I hope you've all got copies of, yeah? Okay. Firstly, can we please approve the minutes of the subcommittee meeting held on the 30th of October 2018 as a correct record? Thank you. I'll now explain how this meeting is going to proceed. The next item is the determination of development management planning applications. Before we proceed to the business, I will outline the guidance on the conduct of business. We will firstly hear from the officer, who will present the report, outline the recommendations, and answer questions or clarify any issues raised by the members of the subcommittee. Any representatives present that wish to speak can address the subcommittee for 3 minutes, which will be taken in the following order. One spokesperson representing any objectors to the application. By now you need to have identified a single spokesperson. If more than one objector wishes to speak, the time will be divided accordingly within the 3-minute slot. Followed by one spokesperson representing any supporters of the application who live within 100 metres of the development site. Then followed by a ward councillor representing those affected by the proposed development. Each speaker should restrict their comments to the planning aspects of the proposal and should avoid repeating information which is already in the report. At the end of each representation, the subcommittee may ask questions of the presenter. If you feel you have not covered all of the points, feel free to invite the members to ask you questions, and I'm sure they'll pick up on that. After receiving all submissions, the subcommittee will debate the application and consider the recommendation. This is a council subcommittee meeting which is open to the public. There should be no interruptions from the audience. Finally, the planning subcommittee comprises of members from different political parties, and these are not politically whipped. The decisions we make today are in accordance with the council's planning policy and based on information contained in the relevant reports and the addendum report. Legal advice would be that only councillors from the ward where the site is located can speak in this capacity. Any other councillor wishing to speak, and not from the ward where the site is located, can speak as an objector. The first item on the agenda is Castle Square and Elephant Road, London, SE16TW, application 18 AP2108, pages 10 to 41 of the main agenda and on the addendum report. And now I'd like to invite the officer to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This item relates to an area of public realm which is located to the east of the Elephant and Castle shopping centre, behind the railway viaduct. The Elephant One development is to the north of the site, which comprises commercial uses, residential and student housing. The new Elephant Park is to the east, the Lost Rivers Bar and Event Spaces to the south, and Elephant Road and the Railway Viaduct to the west. In July this year, the Council's Planning Committee resolved to grant permission for a comprehensive redevelopment of the Elephant and Castle Shopping Centre and London College of Communications sites, the locations of which are shown on image 5 of the member pack. The shopping centre site is identified as the east site. The redevelopment proposal would involve demolition of the existing shopping centre and provision of a new one in its place, together with a range of other uses, and a Section 106 agreement is near completion, which will secure a number of measures to support the affected traders. One of the measures required under the Section 106 agreement is a temporary retail facility on Castle Square, which must have planning permission before the Section 106 for the main development can be completed. And it is this proposal for the temporary retail space which members are now being asked to consider. The proposed retail facility would be 2 to 3 stories high and would provide 517 square metres of floor space. The structure would be completed prior to the closure of the shopping centre, and permission is sought for a period of 5 years to coincide with the projected build period for the main site. It will be constructed of modular units clad with timber and could accommodate up to 32 businesses. The units will be flexible, however, and their size could be altered depending on the needs of the businesses which would occupy them. Full details are provided at paragraphs 4 to 9 of the officer report, and floor plans and elevations are included in the member pack. 2 rounds of consultation have been undertaken on the application, the first of which resulted in 101 objections, plus objections from Latin Elephant and the Shopping Centre Traders Association, and reconsultation following the receipt of further information and revisions to the plans resulted in a further 48 objections and concerns from Latin Elephant. Details of the objections are set out in paragraphs 26 to 29 of the officer report and in the addendum report. And the bulk of the objections relate to the size and design of the facility, which should be large enough for all affected traders in consultation with the trader panel, lack of information on eligibility criteria, lack of information on rent levels, service charges and tenancy agreements, extended hours of trade required, and lack of disabled access. Concerns have also been raised that a relocation fund secured under the Section 106 for the main development would not be sufficient and should be increased, but this has been agreed by the Planning Committee and is not in place. Taking each of the main objections in turn, regarding the size and design of the facility, Castle Square provides a connection from the railway station to Elephant Park and to residential accommodation beyond. It needs to continue to function as a piece of public realm, and the layout of the building in the square has been designed to allow for this. The height of the structure would be acceptable in this location and would not cause any loss of amenity to neighbouring occupiers. The proposal is considered to be of a high standard of design which should animate and activate the street and the square, and a condition for material samples is recommended to ensure that the high quality finish shown on the plans will be translated to the finished structure. It's never been the intention or a requirement that the facility must be large enough to accommodate all of the independent traders in the main shopping centre site. Indeed, it would need to be 8 times bigger than shown on the current plans if it was to accommodate all the existing traders. Other relocation options include affordable retail space at Elephant 1, Perinet House and Elephant Park, and these are shown on a map which we're going to put up on screen now, which shows alternative locations, and you also have a hard copy of that separate to the main member pack. Tree Shepherd, which is an independent business advisor which has been appointed as part of the main shopping centre redevelopment to support existing traders, carried out consultation on relocation options in October this year, and although the rent levels were not known at that time, 16 of the 54 businesses which responded to the consultation selected Castle Square as their first choice, 13 selected it as their second choice, and 8 selected it as their third choice, indicating that not all of the affected traders necessarily want to relocate to temporary retail space in Castle Square. Moreover, as part of the planning application for the main redevelopment, a database of available retail space within the opportunity area is being compiled, and at the moment it shows that there are 38 units available within a mile radius of the shopping centre site. The applicant has carried out its own consultation with traders, and 6 meetings were held between February and August this year, which were attended by 77 traders in total. and where the initial layout and designs for Castle Square were shared. Feedback was requested at the meetings in February, March and June, and 2 verbal comments were made regarding signage for the units and whether the proposed windows positions were fixed. Officers have carried out 2 rounds of consultation on the planning application and have sought to address the concerns that have been raised. With regard to concerns about eligibility criteria, the proposed units would be available in the first instance to all independently owned retail businesses, traders, kiosk holders, restaurants and market store holders within the main shopping centre site, which do not trade from more than 3 locations, which lawfully hold a lease or licence, and which were in occupation at the site on the 3rd of July when the Planning Committee resolved to grant permission for the main redevelopment, and which remain at the site at the date at which the main permission is granted. Only if the units are not required by shopping centre traders could they be let to other businesses, and this is set out in paragraphs 33 to 34 of the officer report and will be secured in a legal agreement. Regarding concerns about lack of information on rent levels, these are set out in paragraphs 39 to 44 of the officer report. Traders currently occupying smaller units in the shopping centre on longer term leases pay on average £65 per square foot, and all of the units in Castle Square would cost less than this. Rents in the first year would be 25% lower than for years 2 to 5 to allow businesses time to establish themselves in a new location, and rents at years 2 to 5 would be £37.50 per square foot on the ground floor, £30 per square foot on the first floor and £50 per square foot on the second floor, which would include a terrace. Compared to what the traders currently pay now at the shopping centre, this equates to a 45%, 56% and 27% discount respectively for the different floor levels averaged over 5 years. Although not directly relevant to this application, this would compare well with the Elephant and Castle supplementary planning document, which requires affordable retail space to be averaged at a 40% discount averaged over 5 years. Service charges for the development would be calculated in accordance with RIC's guidance, and the applicant has indicated that this would likely be around £7 to £8 per square foot compared to £11.28 currently paid at the shopping centre. Regarding leases, businesses occupying the units as soon as they were ready would either be granted 5-year leases or a lease covering the period from the start from occupation until affordable retail units on the main shopping centre site were ready for occupation, whichever is longest. And the rent levels, service charge calculation and lease terms would be secured in a legal agreement. Regarding hours of operation, these were given in the planning application as 6 AM to 5 PM Monday to Saturday, but following concerns from traders that they would be too short, officers have recommended no hours restrictions for A1 and A2 uses, that's retail and financial and professional, and have recommended hours of 7 AM to 11:30 PM Monday to Saturday and 7 AM to 10 PM on Sundays and bank holidays for cafes, restaurants, drinking establishments and takeaways. The Section 106 agreement would require the businesses to be allowed to open during these hours should they wish to do so. In order to address concerns regarding lack of disabled access, the plans have been amended to include 2 lifts so that all floors of the building will be accessible to those with mobility issues and using pushchairs, etc. A condition has been included in the draft recommendation requiring lifts to be operational prior to the building, prior to occupation of the building and maintained as such thereafter. Overall, this is considered to be a high-quality development which would add to the package of support available to the affected traders, and it's recommended that temporary planning permission be granted subject to conditions and completion of the Section 106 agreement.
Thanks, Vicky. Any questions for the officer from members? Yep. Nick?
Do we have any indication how relative rents in areas other than Castle Square would compare? We talked about quite substantial discounts for Castle Square. If traders were not able to get into Castle Square and ended up somewhere else, do we know roughly what they would be paying?
The rents we have for Castle Square are compared against those in the shopping centre, and we are confident that for the businesses that occupy units of a similar type of size within the shopping centre, almost entirely they would be paying a lower rent within Castle Castle Square. So your question relates to other sites. They would be comparable to rents that we would be securing at Paranet House, where the garages at Paranet House are being also converted into retail space. Outside of that, the sort of the rents around the Walworth Road area tend to be upwards of £40 a square foot. Those are for much larger units typically, and typically larger units will command a slightly lower rent per square foot because of the efficiencies and use of retail space.
So just to be clear then, would there be a discount on rental for anybody moving into a non-Castle Square location or not?
There are, of the locations shown on the map, Paranet House would be at a similarly discounted rent. Elephant One will also be at discounted rents, which are set in a Section 106 agreement dating back several years. In the units available in Elephant Park that were also secured in the 106 agreement there, they're currently being marketed and offers are being made on those through Lend-Lease, but they also provide discounted rents under a Section 106 agreement. So those are the units in the area that provide discounted rents. Outside of that, any commercial units that are available through the relocation database, they would be available on the open market. So they would obviously not be under our control or under the applicant's control. But for those that are under our control as in the council, which would be Paranet House, and under the applicant's control, which would be Castle Square and Elephant One, there would be discounted rents offered.
Can I just ask about rents as well? We're looking at 5-year lease, so hopefully that's the build time for the shopping centre. But you've said that if it goes over the 5 years, the lease will be extended. Would there be a rent review at 5 years?
No, there wouldn't.
Yeah, my question is about number of units there and accommodation for them. You said that it probably need to be 8 times bigger to accommodate all the traders there. What impact does that have on traders that are not able to find accommodation?
Well, there's a limit to what can be provided on Castle Square. It needs to keep functioning as a piece of public realm and allowing routes through the site. So this was only ever intended to be one option out of a package of measures, and that package of measures includes a relocation fund, a relocation database, business support from Tree Shepherd, and the council has been developing its own scheme at Paranet House, which offers another affordable option. There's the affordable retail space at Elephant One, and there's affordable retail space coming through in Elephant Park. So this is one of a number of measures. It's not expected to be the only thing, so it wouldn't be large enough for everybody, but that wouldn't be possible on a site of this size.
Just, I'll give a supplemental to Barry. Given all of the different sites, Paranet, Elephant One, all the rest of it, does that cover, are there enough sites for all of the current number of traders if you take it across all of the sites? I realise they can't all go on Castle Square. How many short would we be, roughly?
So, looking at the numbers of businesses currently within the shopping centre and within the market as well, we think we're looking at around 80 businesses. 83 is the number we're working to at the moment. So obviously, some of the numbers we might have on the market might be slightly out of date to that, so they may be slightly lower. Of those, so we have 12 at Paranet House, we have 8 at Elephant One, we have up to 32. So that gets us into the 40 to 50 range of units that are under direct control of the council or the applicant here. Then we also have another 38 currently within the relocation database, and there are also options for market stall holders at East Street where there's scope for additional pitches at East Street. So across the piece, there should be sufficient.
The answer was yes, I think. Thank you. Any more questions? Go on, Nick.
I noticed that one of the issues that a lot of traders were concerned about was that there is a cut-off line at 5 years, or ultimately whenever the new shopping centre is finished, and that there was a desire to have extended leases so that they bridged over into whatever the new property they ended up permanently being in was. What was the rationale behind not offering that?
So the leases on Castle Square are necessarily temporary. I think the desire was potentially to roll them over into the later shopping centre development, where there are affordable retail spaces secured there, so 10% for affordable retail secured in the shopping centre. We don't believe that's feasible for two main reasons. One is obviously they're different sites, and there'll be different types of units, and there'll be different leases effectively. The second is that there will be an application process for businesses from the shopping centre that want to reapply to go back into the new development. If we were to effectively reserve space for tenants that move into Castle Square, that would be preempting that process. So that would make it impossible to just roll those leases directly over.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, does anyone present wish to speak in objection to the application? From the audience?
Yes.
Okay. Are you together with each other?
We are a group of 4, but we've got 3 who will be speaking, and we'll divide our time 1 minute each.
That's fine. Bring some chairs forward so we've only got 2 up there. Great, thank you for coming. To turn the microphone on, the button is the right-hand one. Yep, if you can turn yours off while mine's on, and we'll flip between each other. What I'd like you to do is introduce yourselves so we know who you are, and also if you have a role or anything within the Elephant that you want us to know about. And once you've finished introducing yourself, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak between yourselves. As I said, at the end, if you feel there's anything you haven't been able to cover, don't hesitate to invite the councillors, the members, to ask you questions on that. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Santiago Belufo. I'm a project officer for Latin Elephant, representing the traders.
I'm Matteo Quintero, and I'm speaking on behalf of D. Strandina UK Limited in 6 Farrow Court on Elephant Road.
Good evening, I'm Natalia Perez. I'm also a project officer for Latin Elephant, also speaking on behalf of the Latin American and migrant and ethnic community.
My name is Imad Migahid. I run one of the shops inside the shopping centre, and I'm the head of the Trader Association.
Okay, when you're ready, we'll start the clock.
Thank you, Chair and members of tonight's Planning Subcommittee B. I'm speaking on behalf of Latin Elephant and some of your Black, Asian, minority ethnic constituents and traders unhappy with the application for Castle Square, which you are deciding this evening. I hope you've all had a chance to read in detail our objection, which you should have received via email yesterday. I would also like to draw to your attention these Andina's and the Elephant and Castle Creators Association's concerns on the scheme. Latin Elephant would like to raise the following concerns: the number of units, the size of the proposed development, the rent levels, the leases, the design for windows and shop fronts, barriers also with the consultation. We would like to invite you to ask questions on the above issues to further expand on our concerns. As democratically elected local representatives, you all have a unique and privileged position and the potential to make a real difference with people's lives and their future. Tonight you have a chance to make a real difference for Black, Asian, minority ethnic traders and constituents. Please vote wisely.
On behalf of the traders, we were promised on the plan that we will pay exactly the same rent in Castle Square. However, the calculation is completely incorrect. That we don't pay an average of £65, and you can ask me a question about that, and I'll give you the details. And also, we're promised to pay exactly the same rent as we pay in the shopping centre, and that's not the case. We're paying double.
D. Strandina is deeply concerned about the opening hours of Castle Square and the size of Castle Square. the early closing hours of weekends and weekdays means that that many Latin American members of the community who work long hours, they do not have a place to socialize, bar or restaurant, as in the two locations in Elephant and Castle with A4 licensing, being Di Standina and La Bodeguita, will be closed by the Elephant project. And so the castle, the short hours of the Castle Square project does not provide space for long hours such as ourselves for Latin American venues. And also considering the gap between the current floor space occupied by existing independent traders and the sum of the proposed relocation sites, we are asking for Castle Square to be bigger in size, since as a large business, this is of particular concern to Di Strandina. Also, being the last retailer to relocate, as we are in Arch 6 on Elephant Road, and not part of the shopping centre, we are worried that we...
If you could start winding up now, please.
So yeah, we are worried that we will not be given relocation fund and a relocation site, as Castle Square, the retailers will start moving in when the shopping centre is demolished.
Thank you. Members' questions? Victoria.
Could you just tell me about your concerns you're saying about rent levels and leases? What are your concerns?
The concerns we have with regards to the rent levels is basically, it's quoted on the report that we pay £65 per square feet. And that's incorrect information, and nobody has carried the correct analysis. The average price, I've got it here, and I've gone down to all the shops, is between £15 to £20 per square feet. So if we were given a promise that we pay like for like, then we should be paying £15 or £20 per square feet. The report says that we will pay between 28 to 35, depending on the size of the unit. And you have to also take into consideration that our trading conditions will completely change. We will be trading outside in the windy part of Castle Square rather than inside of the shopping centre. So we'll basically jeopardise our conditions and pay double what we're paying now. I run a shop and I pay £15,000 rent, and I have no problem disclosing that. And my shop size is 1,000 square feet. So if it doesn't take a genius to work out that it's £15 per square feet. That's my current level.
And your concerns about the leases?
The concerns about the leases is basically being quoted in the mayor that the current, the word affordable or below market rate is very ambiguous. It's not clear. So we need to know exact amount, because we, like every other business, we like to do a long-term plan. And as a short-term plan of 5 years, we also need to do a 10-year plan. So we can't really work out a plan if you don't know the price of the unit. And if you don't know, if you got a lease that is going to be for at least 10 years. Nobody runs a business with a 5-year plan.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on what you described, did you say you visited each of the businesses and they've revealed to you what their current rental levels are?
I have given a random samples of most of the businesses, and we're all in the same boat.
How many businesses?
Well, sir, with all due respect, there's no current analysis of exactly how you came out to the figure of £65 per square feet as an average. So in my calculation of averages, you work out the number of businesses. It's not really my duty to do that. However, I went to 2 or 3 businesses who are a good friend of mine inside the shopping centre, and that's a reflection of the current businesses and how much they pay, and I've worked it out. Therefore, I think it's quite clear that a further analysis on the current rent level should be addressed and analysis carried out to exactly how much we pay as an average, rather than just basically taking it religiously. This is the number.
Perhaps invite the councillor to...
Councillor, can I add something?
Perhaps if you'd like to put it in the form of a question, invite the councillor to ask you a question on the subject.
Would you ask me if I would like to expand on that, please?
I would like you to expand upon that. But clearly, taking an average of 2 or 3 businesses is unfortunate.
Thank you, Councillor. The research that Latin Elephant has carried out with over a dozen businesses, has identified significant lower levels than the £65 per square feet that has been provided. And our main argument is the fact that if you look at paragraph 42 of the officer's report, it is very unclear as to why some independent businesses with short-term leases that are operating in the red line and indeed eligible for relocation in Castle Square are disregarded when calculating these rent levels. Bottom line is this average was done taking into account some businesses that pay a significant higher rent level than the majority of the businesses. Therefore, the average is incorrect. So the promise for the traders of paying the same or even half is not true.
Okay. Could we perhaps ask officers to clarify that issue and the statements made on paragraph 42?
So the average rent has been taken by looking at 18 businesses which are in smaller units in the centre, which are effectively those units that might equivalently fit into the units that are available in Castle Square. So a 1,000 square foot unit would not fall into that group. And they are those units that are on the longer term leases in the centre. So there are another group which have been brought in on shorter term leases temporarily to fill space in the centre which has been vacant as it progresses towards its planned closure to keep the centre vibrant, etc. So of this 18 businesses, the average rent paid across those units is £65 per square foot. There is a range, there is a significant range. When looking at the rents overall of businesses that might fit into Castle Square, so that includes those 18. It also includes the businesses that trade from barrows, and it also includes market traders. As I said before, the vast majority of those would be paying less per square foot than they would in the shopping centre at the moment. There are a small number that might be paying slightly more per square foot, and they are either businesses that are on a very long-term historic low rent deal, so 3 of those. There are also 3 that were brought in on short-term deals, which are much cheaper. All of those are in slightly larger units of the group that we're looking at, and if they were to take a smaller size unit in Castle Square, they could also pay less rent overall than they're currently paying. Obviously that would mean a lower unit, a smaller unit. But broadly speaking, of units that are of a similar size as Castle Square, plus barrows, plus market stalls, the rents are lower.
I've got a question. You mentioned about the hours of operation, you weren't happy with those. Could you tell the committee what would be acceptable hours of operation?
So our business has licensing hours to work until 3 a.m. So we are a Latin American bar and restaurant, and so is La Bodeguita. Both our businesses will be demolished as part of the development, and in Castle Square and in all the relocation sites, all the licensing hours will be until 10, 11 p.m. So there'll be no space for an A4 licensed unit, is my concern.
And you talk about your licensing hours. What are your planning hours? What are you limited to open till under planning?
So weekdays until 3 a.m. and weekends until 5 a.m.
Thank you. Members? Yep, Victoria?
Could you tell me a bit more about your concerns about, you said windows, because I was listing concerns, you said you've done rent levels, leases, but you also said windows as well.
Thank you. Yes, in relation to the design, windows are unevenly distributed throughout the facade. This results in some retail units with windows, while others have solid walls with no such opening facing the street. This lack of visibility is particularly concerning for some traders, since the access to the shops will be solely from the square on the other side of the road. Also, I don't know if you've had a chance to see this drawing. This is a drawing with a shop right now inside the shopping center. So you see from the back the big shop and how big the space that she has to display the goods that she's selling. Now, the picture that you see in front will show you what the new unit will potentially look like. This creator would lose all this space to display the goods that she wants to sell, compromising as well.
Actually, you can see from the drawing on the screen that I think it's just illustrative, but it's has, as my colleague pointed out, some shops, some singular unit shops with window and others without, and both, I mean, all of the singular units will pay the same rent, whereas one type would be able to display goods. And this is particularly important in the case of the majority of the businesses inside the shopping center, which need shopfronts to display their goods. And it's also significant because the way the scheme is designed, the box park is designed, it's facing the park, so the access for customers will have to go around. So if you don't have a window in the front to display and to call the attention of customers, unlikely or difficult, so too much effort for passerby to actually go around to check what's inside the shop. Thank you.
And I'm assuming we're looking at Elephant Road passing in front of us. Did you notice in the addendum that a condition has been offered? Additional display windows could be provided along the Elephant Road frontage. I think officers have taken note of your written submissions in paragraph 9, and it may well be that members wish to endorse that condition, which we will talk at the end. Yeah. So hopefully that's a problem that can be taken away by a condition on this planning application. Sir?
With all due respect to the officers who wrote the report, if we can ask kindly if they can share with us the exact calculation of how they got to £65 per square feet and the sample of shops that they had and the level of rent that they displayed in the calculation. That would be very much appreciated.
Unfortunately, that's not something we can make a condition of this planning application, but if officers are prepared to. Do you want to talk? Yeah, I mean, I did kind of think the question had been answered, but
the information we have comes from a rent schedule which is provided by the operator of the shopping centre. That's all I can say really.
Martin.
Can I just go to a slightly different subject on the development as proposed? What level of consultation with yourselves was involved? Were you aware of this current layout, and have you had the opportunity to influence this final design?
So I represent one of the two businesses on Elephant Road, Arches 6 and 7. We were not consulted, as the only businesses included were the ones in the shopping centre and the market traders. Arches 6 and 7 weren't included as part of the consultation for the project, and as such, which is why the units are so small. So we have an arch, big arch, so 2 arches, Arches 6 and 7, and none of the relocation sites have the capacity to fit us in, so they're too small for our big arch.
As a member of the traders, we are always invited by the Lancy, with all due respect to them, on a tenant meeting, more than one, however, with all paperwork and a display, so obviously you can't see that in reality, but that was the design was offered with basically this is how they were going to do it. So we were not given the opportunity to say, okay, we want it to be like that or like this. This is what the design that was offered to us, and this is a description of how it's going to be.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to compliment my colleagues' answer in relation as well to the impact the licensing hours will have in the new scheme. We're talking about two of the biggest venues for the Latin American community in London, La Bodeguita, and also this
2003.
15 years. Also, and La Bodeguita inside has been inside the shopping centre for over 20 years. It's going to have a massive cultural impact for the Latin American community. It's a cultural hub where we all meet, where we all gather, where we all socialize and help each other. It's about, and not only Latin Americans, people from all over London and from all over the world go and use the space. This is going to have a massive cultural impact for the community if suddenly these two great venues that are so much loved by all Latin American and Londoners will be lost and having to close by 10 o'clock. And clearly we can see from the display will not be able to meet the capacity as well that the current venues have.
Okay, thank you. I would quite like to know from officers actually, so normally the operating hours take into account impact on local residents, that sort of thing. Have there been objections or reports to the noise and nuisance team complaining about noise to these later hours which are currently in operation? And in what way do you think the premises at the Castle Square development will have greater impact and therefore require more restriction on the opening hours, if that makes sense?
I don't have the full details, but there have been enforcement investigations regarding Distriandina and La Bodeguita in relation to noise and whether they were being used as a nightclub, because I believe, and I haven't got the full details, that they are in planning terms more of a restaurant use rather than a nightclub. So the enforcement team did investigate that. So as to whether later hours would be suitable on Castle Square, it's different to the shopping centre because the shopping centre is enclosed, the railway arch is enclosed. This is a temporary facility. It is close to residential and student accommodation in Elephant One, so there may be concerns about having significantly later hours there that could result in amenity impacts. So the hours that we've recommended to members, and it is in members' gift to consider whether those are appropriate, reflect the hours for the consented Elephant One development.
Thanks, Vicky, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. Any more questions for the objectors, members? You go for it.
I think when you were talking about hours, I suppose I'm thinking of more following it from the objectors about any quality impact assessment of obviously the cultural aspects and of limiting the hours, because I hear your point about ESB and whatever, but obviously if you're transferring traders from one location to something less than half a mile away, but also reducing their hours, what's the impact on their business, what's the impact on their bottom line, but also what's the impact on the cultures and the communities who are directly involved and indirectly involved in the American community, but the indirect is the wider Southwark, and then it ripples out from there. I mean, did you do quality impact assessment, or is that something that another committee has to assess and deal with? That's just my question.
A detailed equalities impact assessment was carried out as part of the planning application for the redevelopment of the shopping centre, and that identified impacts in relation to age and race. So a number of mitigation measures were secured through the planning application for the main shopping centre site. I've outlined some of those as well. It's predominantly the relocation support to help people find other locations. So this site isn't going to be suitable for everybody. It's not intended to be for everybody. It's one of a package of measures. Distriandina may decide to look at the database of retail opportunities. There are 34 or 38 currently available at the moment in the wider area. They'll also be able to access relocation support through the relocation fund. Yes, I mean, I suppose there could be impacts if their hours were limited and they can't operate as they currently do. So they may well select one of the other relocation options which are available, or fall back on the relocation database.
Can I just say something quickly?
Just a moment. Any more questions from members?
Just ask about the relocation for the business you just said. Are they really nearby, or is it within what sort of proximity are they in the other location which is available, you said?
So the affordable retail units are the ones which are on the map, and they're all in about 250 metres of the site. For the market retail units, the ones 34 or 38 of them on the database as it sort of stands at the moment, they're all within a mile of the shopping centre.
Barry.
I just wanted to follow up on that. Is it not the case that two of these businesses are located in arches at the moment, and actually it's not possible to provide a similar location to that within that footprint up there?
La Bordighita is in the shopping centre and it has a kiosk. Distriandina is within a railway arch. I mean, these are flexible units, so they could be made bigger. They're shown divided up into sort of predominantly single units at the moment, but if people wanted a larger unit, then they could be made larger.
Although it will be much more difficult to enable the hours of use that is currently in place.
That's correct, in our view.
I'm being too nice to you all. I've just been told off. Nick and Martin both indicated questions. Are they to the objector rather than to... Oh, okay, Martin first, then Nick.
Thank you. Go back to my earlier question on the design and your input in the design. If I understood your answer, that is, you were simply presented with a design, but you've not, if I understood your response, influenced the final permission. As part of this early discussion, was the need for lifts, therefore disabled access, identified by yourself, and only recently introduced to the plans, or did you not notice that you required disabled access, and it's only in the past 7 days or so that you identified it as being a requirement?
Sir, with all due respect, you can't call an objection on a plan to the council, and which is an objection that we wrote as a consultation to the design. This, when we looked at the design on the plan on the council website, it said basically that they had no lift, no disabled access, and this was one of the objections we put forward. So my idea of consultation is as follows, is that the person sits down and says, hello, we're going to design this, what would you like to have in? Before putting it into the plan.
Nick?
My question is about Distriandina. If you were to conclude that Castle Square was just physically not the right shape for your business, are there any other businesses on this map that you've looked at which, or locations rather, which might be appropriate?
So our business is located in Elephant Road, which is within the red line, but so special emphasis has been made on the shopping centre traders. The two arches have been mainly left out of the plans. So in terms of searching for relocation sites, the ones Delante has provided has been mainly towards the Elephant and Castle shopping centre traders, which usually have smaller market stalls. So we occupy a large arch, and none of the sites would be suitable for us in the future. And if we were to find something of a similar size, the relocation fund is completely unsuitable. It would be £4,000 we would be provided if it's a flat rate between all the traders, and £4,000 would not allow us to find an arch or venue of suitable size.
Okay, I think we'll start wrapping it up there. I just had one last question for the four of you. The impression I get is you're not against the idea of alternative space being provided for you. It's the design of the space that you have concerns about. Is that fair to say? That size and shape and room sizes. It's not actually that. You don't actually want this application refused, I assume.
to be basically exact and precise, all we want and all we wanted from the beginning in connection with the shopping centre and Castle Square, which is a condition to the shopping centre application, is asking for our basic right. And our basic rights in planning law say the follows: if you are going to kill our business, it's at least offer us like for like with affordable rent. And if you are going to kill our business, then at least allow us a time to rebuild our business again if you're not going to offer us. How you do that is down to the council and the developer.
Okay, thank you very much. You can return to your seats now. Thanks for your time. And members, if you do have further questions for officers, we'll bring them together at the end to make a note. Okay. Does anyone present live within 100 metres of the development site and wish to speak in support of the application? I'm just really interested. Oh, sorry. I thought we'd get out of here a bit quicker. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Is the applicant or their agent here? Please introduce yourself and come forward. Thank you and welcome. Same again, if you could just introduce yourselves and your roles, and when you're ready, we'll start the clock.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Richard Ward. I'm a director at DP9 Planning Consultants, and we are the agents for this application. Beside me is Mark Enderby and Helen McVie from Delancey. Firstly, we welcome the officer recommendation to grant a temporary planning permission for the scheme before you this evening. Our key objectives are as follows: to provide over 5,000 square feet of affordable, flexible retail space for local independent businesses, with first refusal given to existing shopping centre traders. To contribute towards a broader vision for the square, to be a destination where people spend time rather than just passing through. To provide an active street frontage to Elephant Road and a feature gateway to Castle Square and Elephant Park. And finally, to provide and maintain a vibrant and varied retail offer in the vicinity for local residents and businesses whilst the existing shopping centre is being redeveloped. The proposed scheme has been the subject of a comprehensive public consultation process starting in February this year. There have been 5 tours held between March and May, which included showing existing shopping centre traders the concept for Castle Square, as well as the alternative resale sites in Elephant and Castle. The tours were attended in excess of 30 traders. There have been 6 meetings with existing shopping centre traders between February and August. These meetings were attended by a total of 77 traders. The meetings held in February, March and June provide an opportunity for traders to give feedback about the information provided at these meetings. And at the meetings in August, the traders were given first look at the information boards that have been on display in the Community Engagement Centre in the existing shopping centre. Since July, it has been open 2 days a week and we have welcomed over 840 visitors to date. In addition, we have leafleted over 1,000 local residents and businesses, including those located on Elephant Road. We have also set up the Trader Panel, which reaffirms our commitment to a fair and democratic relocation process. A number of queries were raised during the post-submission consultation process, covering issues including eligibility criteria, the rent and service charge levels, opening hours, and disabled access. It has been noted already that the scheme has been revised to accommodate disabled access, and clarification on the other issues is referenced in the committee report. The vision for Elephant and Castle, as set out in Southwark planning policy, is to transform it into an attractive central London destination, making it a more desirable place to live for existing and new residents, with excellent shopping, leisure, learning and cultural facilities. It is considered that the proposed temporary scheme will make a valuable contribution on the journey to achieving this objective. In line with the recommendation of your officers, we hope that members will be minded to approve our application this evening. Should this be the case, construction would start early next year and be ready for opening.
Members, questions? Yep, Mark?
Note I asked the objectors, the presenters, your consultation. You said you've had the 6th meeting with traders, and that was to show them the concept, size, and the message, as it were. To what extent have traders influenced this final design?
So, at those meetings, there was a feedback form provided, and there's also discussion that took place. 18 traders provided a written feedback from those meetings.
If I may ask you, then, 18 traders provided feedback. Can you provide any sort of substantive responses as to what that feedback, what form it took? Were they commenting upon the size of the units, the shop frontage, the height of the building? Were they commenting upon the accessibility by potential pedestrians or customers? What were their comments?
They provided positive comments in terms of, yes, they were in favour of the layout.
Can I say, I think that there's a lot of consultation that was undertaken. Clearly the characteristics of Castle Square itself and the configuration of the slab and the loading capacity. We also have requirements for fire engine access of tenders across the site in more than one location. So we have a number of things that we've got to maintain on the site. There is a limit to how much space we can put on the site. As Helen has said, in consultation, discussions with people both in the engagement facility as well as one-to-one conversations, we asked people's comments, and where they provided us, we've taken those on board. Lift access is a very good one. As I understand it, and I'm not an expert by a mile, the fact is, because it's a temporary facility, disabled access is not necessarily required. I'm not defending it, but it's not required. But as Latin Elephant raised it, we decided it was the right thing to do. So that's what we've done with incorporating it. So we have, where people have made comments which we think were really positive, and that's not the case that they raised things that we didn't think positive, where we genuinely think it would be an improvement of the scheme, that's an example of things that we've taken on board.
I think I'll just follow up from Martin's point. I think for me, I just need to know, you said you had 6 consultation meetings with traders? Yeah? Could you tell me how many traders turned up for all 6? Also, my supplementary question is, you said you had 18 feedback forms, so really is that 18 out of 25? Is that 18 out of 200? And I get the impression from you, it's not, they said, you said we did, it's more about we had positive comments. What was if there's bound to be some traders of the people who attended who didn't have positive comments? What did you do with that? Did you call them back for a meeting? Did you have proper feedback? Because my background is community development. It's not all about having community consultation. Sometimes it's actually listening to the hard truth and saying, can we discuss this further? Because what I'm trying to find out is, did you just have community consultation for sake, or did you have it active and two-way community consultation?
So yes, there were 6 meetings with the tenants. That was attended by 77 people. And they were completed. There were no negative comments. There was nothing to pick up on in terms of to go back to them, other than what Mark has talked about in respect of
Can I just add, bearing in mind what happened in July and indeed January, in terms of our approach, it's been a proper consultation. It's not just in terms of undertaking, so we've ticked a box. It's bearing in mind the sensitivity of the shopping centre and indeed Castle Square, which is obviously linked in certain respects. Mentioned, which we've taken on board, which, as I said, I'm being very genuine. It was raised by Latin Elephant as an objection, so we've taken it on board because we think it's the right thing to do.
We're talking about community consultation. Could you tell me how far you've got the trader panel? Because obviously you say community consultation, take that important. Could you tell me, have you set that up? Have you got terms of reference, what it's actually doing in terms of delivery? Because obviously that's an important part of your...
Okay. In terms of the trader panel, which obviously referenced at the planning committee in July, following that July committee, there have been a great number of meetings with officers of the council, and indeed there have been a number of meetings with officers, so with politicians, particularly Labour councillors. The trader panel, in terms of reference and indeed the relocation process, has gone through various iterations. It's now at a point where I think it's been amended from an agreed position with the councillors and indeed the officers. It's now been amended for the 4th time, which is actually to be put on the agenda for the next trader panel meeting, which I think is on the 13th of November, i.e. tomorrow. Agreed. The relocation process agreed, but as Darren Merrill said, as the chair of the trader panel at the last meeting, which was the first meeting, there should have been one on Monday, but it was cancelled. The fact is that those two documents are they will change over time, and they are meant to be something that is fluid and will change, because the trader panel is obviously something that, assuming this is approved tonight, the trader panel will be in place for a great number of years.
We had some testimony there from an objector from Distri Andina, who, by the sounds of it, the business is quite different to many of the other businesses, particularly in the shopping centre, and perhaps Castle Square is ill-suited in its design for their business. Have they missed anything? Is there a solution to how they can continue to trade that perhaps they haven't noticed that you could suggest to them?
I think if you look at their location and the timing of the main application, they're obviously on Elephant Road. It's not, when the shopping centre gets demolished, it's not necessarily something that we need in terms of their accommodation. Obviously, the main application is assuming that there is a link provided through that unit and the adjacent one to Elephant Park. So, you know, it's something that I haven't actually considered, but I think, bearing in mind the timeline, I'm sure we could keep them there for a number of years. And then perhaps, again, question timing, and we may come back, but it could well be that, you know, if they do decide as an option to go into the new town centre, then maybe, and then move out and then we could provide them a link. I don't know certainly about the timings, but certainly they wouldn't be required day one, and I can't believe they're required in the first 2 or 3 years, because we can maintain access through existing access, which is the car park, to service the development site. But again, we'd certainly be open to it. We're here genuinely to actually try and help people, because we know the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for everybody, in particular the traders.
Eric? Yeah, I'd like to follow up on the issue of the trader panel, where you spoke about being a fair and democratic location process, and the fact that this is a very crucial milestone in this for the traders. How regrettable do you feel that the trader panel has not been set up by this stage?
I don't think I'm regrettable. I think unfortunately it's taken quite a long while to get it to this stage. There's been a lot of consultation done with officers. There's been a lot of consultation done with politicians, and we've also, with the summer break as well, post the committee in July. In a perfect world, we'd have probably done it a month earlier, but unfortunately it just hasn't been possible because we've had to get a position on these documents. As I say, they're in the second trader panel meetings on tomorrow, and already they're in terms of an agreed position, they're in their 4th version. So we've actually done a lot of hard yards to get to a position where, broadly speaking, the officers are happy and the political allies are happy. And then now the meeting tomorrow is to engage positively with the 6 nominated traders who are going to be on the panel.
Thank you for coming. You can return to your seats now. Thanks for your submissions. This may come as no surprise to you, because does anyone present live within 100 metres of the development site and wish to speak in support of the application? No? Okay. Is there a ward councillor present who wishes to speak? Oh, we get 2 for the price of 1. Please come forward. We know who you are, but for the sake of the audience, if you could introduce yourselves, and when you're ready, we'll start the 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm Councillor Mill from North Walworth.
And Councillor Rebecca Leary, also from North Walworth.
Right. I'm going to do a speech, and I don't want to repeat what's already been said, and a lot of it's already been said already. But the main concerns I have with the development is actually, is it fit for the purpose it's being designed for? As you've heard, some of the traders in the existing shopping centre don't feel they will be able to trade from these particular units unless they are knocked into each other, which then will reduce the amount of traders that could be relocated at. Please have that in mind. It's not a perfect solution. It is part of the solution to do with the whole relocation strategy. But I just want to make sure that you are satisfied that you've explored whether this is fit for the purpose of being able to relocate those traders. We have also had a conversation. You've had a conversation about the rents. I just want to say that I had a meeting with 30 or 40 traders last Friday, and I just put a simple. It's not very scientific. How many people are paying anywhere near the rents that are within this document, the £65? Didn't get one that come up, and I do believe that they are paying between £15 to £30 equivalent rent. So what I would ask you to do, if you possibly could, is put a condition within to the actual rents that are there. That will then satisfy that. The office can go and explore it a bit more, look at the rent, and actually do that piece of homework at the same time. The other part of the thing is we have to remember that within our policies, the space that should be replaced is like for like when we relocate people. That is not necessarily doable, but what I want to do is make sure that you are satisfied that this is as close as we can get to like for like on those policies. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank the members for their presentation. Can I just be clear on what you said in relation to the, first of all, let's take rents first of all, okay. And I suspect that there is clearly some misunderstanding as to what was declared by the applicant to the council as average rent levels and what you're finding through your empirical observation. Can you tell us what was the highest rents that those you met the other day were actually paying? What was the highest rate per square feet, for example?
The highest rent when I spoke to the tenants there was around £28 a square foot. As admin has said, he's paying around £15 a square foot. It's 1,000 square feet of space there, which does equate. But if you can see, I'm getting most of the and admin's been there 15 years, 20 years, has it been about there? So he is actually should have been on that list of long-term lease tenants there. So I was asking long-term tenants. I've noticed they put the barrows in there as well. So that I would have thought would have reduced the rent, not hired it.
Thank you, Chair. Just if I may ask a slightly different question this time, in relation to your comment on fit for purpose. I note that, of course, the units, the individual units, I've got to go back to the original report, are somewhat smaller than what's available within the shopping centre. Was the feedback you're receiving suggesting that those individual units are so dissimilar to what's in the shopping centre that they're not fit for purpose? And is that the reason for your comments?
Well, within the shopping centre you have several different size units and several different types of businesses that are working there. Now these smaller units might be ideal for a market trader that wants to go up and get an actual permanent location. It might be ideal for the barrows inside, but for the actual units that are let out there, most of those businesses, apart from a few of them, are most probably around about 6 to 1,000 square feet. So they would either have to reduce their business, which actually would have a knock-on effect to their business performance, or find not through the location, which, as I say, would then reduce.
In terms of the windows, and I'm really glad that it's in the revised report, because I think actually that's one of the most important things that we need to be able to have, is the access to be able to see the shops that are trading within the site as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Yep, we're done. Yep. Would any member of the committee like to speak on this matter? And I think we'll ask officers. And we can ask officers questions now. I won't get told off again. Yep.
If I may, Chair, obviously we need to come back to the issue of these rent and rent levels, maybe not for the officers, possibly for the applicants. Because obviously there is a discrepancy here, quite significant discrepancy, and of course the whole purpose of this particular temporary location is that it should be, at least in affordability terms, comparable, if not cheaper, which is how it's been presented. But what we're seeing here is evidence that it's actually more expensive. I did need to satisfy myself that that is not the case. And I know the question to you earlier on, you obviously would not answer, that is to cite the individual businesses that are paying these much higher rates. Maybe we could ask you, maybe do the other way around and talk about the types of units that were paying a comparable rate. So this did take the units which are in Castle Square and a similar unit in the shopping centre. What is the difference in the rate, actual difference in the rate, as opposed to the average difference across all the units? Not too difficult a question, of course.
There's quite a range. There are obviously, with this being an average, again this is the information I've got here, which indicates that there are some businesses, and these again are the businesses in the smaller units that are on the longer term leases in the centre. So again, 1,000 square foot unit has not been included in this assessment, because obviously it would not be comparable with the units at Castle Square. So there are rents substantially higher than the £6 per square foot figure. There are also obviously rents lower than that figure, and substantially lower in some cases. So we've had to take an average across the piece in order to present an equivalent, in order to compare against what might normally be expected in a scenario where we were applying the SPD policy, where there was a larger development, we were providing 10% affordable retail. In this case, we're looking at the whole of this particular scheme. So there's a range of rents, obviously, and the average point within these 18 units, which are the longer term leases, and smaller units, falls at that point. Again, looking at the comparable rents for a market stall or for a barrow, it also seems clear that the costs of operating from those would be less if a unit operating a market stall or a barrow were to move into Castle Square into a single unit.
Thank you, Chair. I'm hesitant, but of course, what I think you're saying to me is that you as officers have not carried out your own independent research to determine the veracity of the information received from the applicant. Therefore, this is solely the applicant's information that we're relying upon. But it is being contested both at the moment. I'm trying to work out a solution, to be honest with you, on this one. But I recognise that rent levels, and I might be guided by colleagues here, rent levels that are payable, is that a material planning consideration?
Well, in this particular case, it is important because, as you said earlier, it's trying to provide comparable rent levels for the shopping traders at the Elephant Castle Shopping Centre. So it is germane in this particular instance because affordable rent levels are really the solution that members are trying to look for.
Can we condition the rent levels?
Well, the rent levels are set out very clearly in the report at the moment, and there does seem to be some discrepancy in the information that's being provided. There was reference earlier to rent levels down the Walworth Road at £40 per square foot,
Now, I don't know what evidence there is for that, but it's going to be difficult to condition, bearing in mind the applicant has agreed these figures, and at the moment there's been officer support for these figures. So if you are going to condition it, it's going to be dependent on evidence that you've heard, which might suggest that the figures that have been put forward elsewhere are perhaps not quite accurate.
Which begs the question, where did you get the £40 per square metre Walworth Road figure from?
That's based on information that the council has from its own surveyors.
I just want to second what my colleague Councillor Seaton said. I think it's really important part of this, especially from the objectors, that you're starting from the most accurate basis in order to assess the rent levels, because if that is such a disparity, it's not like we're talking £2-3 a square feet, we're talking a matter of £30-40 a square feet, and that's going to impact on whether people decide to move to the new location if it's passed and whatever. I'd be more comfortable if we did condition that and make sure we have more. Either we can task the council officers to do more research to get more accurate figures. If not, then it's a case of why is there such a disparity.
Yeah, Nick. Just to continue this theme, I don't know if this is possible. Would it be possible to base the discounts that people receive on their rent on the rent that they are currently receiving? So not on averages, but business by business. What do you pay now? What does that work out per square foot? Apply the discount. This is what your new rent will be. Would that be a possible approach?
I think the problem you're going to have is comparing apples with apples. So if you've got someone who's in the sort of ground floor bit, I think they call them a barrow or something like that, and they are successful in getting a site in Castle Square, you're not comparing. If they were paying 15 quid down there, it's not equitable for them to be paying 15 quid in a much superior location, is my thought on that. I think it's going to be quite difficult to do, to be honest. Any thoughts?
Disparity at the moment, and also under normal circumstances not to question officer research in these matters. Clearly, this is not officer research, it's reliant upon the applicant, which has clearly been disputed by those who actually currently trade there. And if we had an alternative source that we could use as a barometer, that would have been very useful. And unless there is a way of resolving that tonight, maybe we'll come back to this issue later on in our final summing up as to how we proceed. Okay? We may want to talk about other things now, if I may. Okay. I did want to comment on the size and suitability of the units. So the councillors have mentioned this, and of course the objectives have mentioned. I asked the officers, and maybe I'll follow on the applicant. I asked initially about consultation, and therefore looking at what is ideal for a trader in the shopping centre to move to the proposed site. So the consultation would have yielded out from that discussion. Well, ideally, it should be at least half or 2/3 at the very least of what we have now, so we can trade properly. Secondly, shop frontage. Both members and officers have cited this. We need a similar shop frontage so we can highlight to passing pedestrians our goods. And I'm wondering from the officers, first of all, with those two questions in mind, how is it that you haven't questioned the applicants on those details? One, consultation and impact consultations out on the final design, and secondly, particularly as both councillors and objects of the site, that the shop frontage, why is it so limited, and why would you accept a design that is so dissimilar to what's in the shopping centre?
Well, in terms of whether the units are sort of fit for purpose, as we've said before, they would be flexible, so there would be, if somebody wanted a larger unit and they were allocated a unit, they would put their preference, so it would be flexible in that sense. When Tree Shepherd did their consultation on preferred relocation options, 16 of the traders selected Castle Square as their first choice, 13 put it as their second choice, and 8 put it as their third choice. So it's not going to be for everybody, but 16 traders of a number who were consulted did select this as the first choice. In terms of the windows, we've put a condition, or we've recommended a condition to the addendum which says that the number of windows shown on that image there is the minimum that should be provided, and if the developer wants to put, if the traders want any more windows to go in, the developer will have to provide that through the Section 106 agreement, so that was something the developer would have to fund without any impact on the rent levels, and that would be included in the 106 agreement. That's at paragraphs...
Did that knowing what the rent levels were going to be?
No, the rent levels haven't been discussed at that point. It was literally just...
Or even the size. They weren't aware of the sizes either. It was simply location. The question to them was location rather than the size of units and rent levels. Would that be right?
I understand from the applicant that they were shown the initial layouts as well, so they would have had a layout of the plans. I can't confirm entirely, but that was my understanding from the developer. It wasn't just this is the site, it was some plans as well.
Perhaps the applicant could enlighten us on that question.
The units are actually designed to be flexible in size, so we believe we made that clear, and that in turn impacts on the size of the shop front as well. Because if someone wants a unit that's outlined as being a single unit, if it's a double unit, then it'll have twice the width of shop front.
And just to add, day one, we don't know who the tenants in each particular unit are. So clearly, once we've gone through the relocation process in terms of the shopping centre as laid out, then if somebody specifically would like an extra window, we'll put an extra window in. But there's no point in all the windows in day one, simply because the reality is they may come back, so they don't want a window because they're going to put their, I don't know, whatever it might, their storage area there. So it is a question, as Helen said, they are flexible units. Once we know who our customers are, our tenants are for the units, they come forward, then we can actually talk about how the unit is finished.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up from that point. Both of you keep saying they're very flexible. They're flexible to the point that how flexible is flexible? If somebody wanted, let me finish, if somebody wanted to be really flexible, does that mean it's a loss in the next person's unit? I mean, how does that work in reality? Because there's one thing saying flexibility, but for me in real life, your flexibility could impact on the people around you. I'd like to know more detail, because these are people's trading businesses. They want to know how flexible is it going to impact my next door neighbour, and then you're going to have confrontation and not be able to deliver your business.
The unit's effectively modular, so effectively the planning consent will set out the floor area, and effectively they're quite easily combined. So if there are 3 units adjacent to each other, they can be easily combined into a single unit.
So then it's one business.
It's one business, but again, there's clearly a quantum of total floor space that we're dealing with, set down by the planning consent application.
Sorry, to follow up from your argument, the supplementary question is then technically, if somebody wanted to be flexible, we may end up not having 32 businesses in Castle Square, because you tend, like you've just said, businesses, everyone's got 3 units each, rather than 32 businesses moving to Castle Square. Am I right, or I'm just thinking it through and taking your logic and saying if people are that flexible, it's not like everybody has 1 unit and that's it, so we've got up to 32 businesses. Technically, in a worst case scenario, we could have 9 businesses and everyone's got 4 units each. So we're technically not moving as many businesses across as we want to into Castle Square. Is that, I'm just following your logic.
The logic is correct. The reality is some tenants will want a certain amount of space which will fit 1 module. If a tenant wants more than 1 module, they'll get 2 modules. So you're actually correct, there'll be less than the total number of individual units.
Thank you again. Any more comments, Martin?
Yes, if I may. Again, thank you for that clarification. So 16 businesses indicated they wish to move. So of course you will know straight away of the current square footage, what it is they, in terms of spaces that they currently occupy. And I know it's maybe a question that may be unfair at the moment, but are you aware what is the total square footage of those businesses that indicated that Castle Square is their first choice? Would it come up to, for example, the 2,342 square metres, for example?
I'm not actually aware of which those 16 businesses are.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Okay, team. It seems that there are two burning issues here. The first one is the square footage of what's being proposed. But we're not here to change what's being proposed. We're here to make a decision on that. We are not in the business of telling applicants to go away and build it differently. The burning issue for me is the disparity in the rents, which seems very high. Also, in paragraph 41 of the report, it states from year 2 onwards, the rents would be at a level which is lower than that paid by almost all of the current businesses which occupy smaller units within the shopping centre. We don't know that. As far as I am aware, we have no evidence of that. Well, our stuff is about the Walworth Road as well. I think I'm going to get the same reply. Thoughts, guys? Because I think we're staring down the barrel of a deferral here. Please comment. Sorry, please bear with us.
Are we going to go into recess then, Chair, for a moment, or not?
I think these people want to go home. I don't want to do a recess and then everyone have to come back for a decision. So just bear with us for a sec.
I'm only suggesting, Chair, that the entire committee should be involved in that dialogue. That's what I'm suggesting.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about something completely different. Oh, I see what you mean. I got you now. I knew tonight was going to be easy. Members of the audience, we're going to close the session to members only for a few minutes. I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience. If you could go back out in the green room for a little bit and we'll get you back as soon as we can. I know the evening's dragging on, I'm very sorry, but we want to make the right decision.
But on what grounds? Should there be any grounds for us to go? You know.
Yes, because I've asked you.
What grounds are we asked to leave?
Because the chair of this committee has asked you to leave because we're closing the session.
Grounds, I mean.
Yeah, you just got it.
A reason. Thank you.